The following morning, the curtains were open at Alpine Lodge, and the winter sun flooded across the breakfast table as the fire gently warmed the tiny living room. There was an atmosphere of conventional goodness which was not present the previous night, and the withered dong lay dormant on the mantelpiece with a careless negligence as the family scoffed down a full English breakfast, blissfully unaware of the damage it was doing to their arteries. Mr. Black chuckled at the previous night's fears, and Mrs. Black laughed at him for no specific reason, as was her custom at breakfast. "I expect all old soldiers talk bollocks after a few whiskies," she said, accidentally spitting a little black pudding across the table. "What the fuck were we thinking of, getting drawn in by all that bullshit?" "Well, if the money doesn't turn up before I'm back from work, don't go wasting it on drugs, guns and prostitutes like you did with Granny's legacy," laughed Adolf amiably as he stood up from the table and pinched his father's sausage before leaving. Later that day, Mr. Black fired into a crate of berries he'd stashed in the coal shed the previous weekend. "I know it's all bollocks," he slurred, "but I swear to fucking God, the donkey's dong twitched in my hand last night. "Never mind the bollocks," said the old lady comfortingly. "It fucking did move," replied her half-pissed husband. "There's no bollocks about it." His wife ignored the old cunt, as her attention had been seized by the furtive actions of a dodgy-looking bloke with a briefcase outside, who seemed to be thinking about coming to the house. She opened the door and cheerily called to the stranger, "Do you fucking want something or what? Standing round like a spare prick at a wedding? Fucking come here if you fucking want something, or fuck off before I fetch my husband to kick your fucking head in, you nosy fucker. Oh, gotcha!" The stranger anxiously entered the house and tried not to stare at the unusual sight of a donkey's dong on the mantelpiece as the old lady politely asked what the fuck he wanted. "Well, don't shoot the fucking messenger, right?" he muttered, "but I've been asked to come here from the firm of Suffolk and Wass. You know, where your son used to work." "What do you mean, used to?" inquired Mr. Black, inquiringly. "He set off to work just this morning." "Yeah, I know," laughed the stranger, placing the briefcase on the floor. "But he's dead now." "What the fuck?" cried the old woman. "That's not fucking funny, you fucking little prick." "What the fuck happened?" demanded Mr. Black. "He got his knob caught in a grinding machine. Fuck knows what he was trying to do, but there you go. Takes all sorts, I suppose," replied the visitor. "I fucking warned him about that." "Dirty little prick," cried Mr. Black angrily. He stood gawping into the fire like a right gormless bastard, and clutching his wife's hand, thrust it into his trouser pocket for comfort. "It's hard," he sighed. "It's hard." "Yeah, I can see that, lads," replied the visitor. "See it? You want to feel it? It hasn't been this hard for a long time," laughed Mrs. Black. "Fuck, I don't want to feel it. Fucking hell, chuckled the visitor. "What are you two wittering on about?" snapped Mr. Black. "I'm not talking about my todger. I'm talking about the situation. The situation's hard. Difficult, you know." "Well, look, never mind all that old cock, mate," laughed the visitor. "The company wants me to pass on their insincere sympathy to you for your fucking loss, and to let you know that they're not taking any fucking responsibility for the accidents, as Adolf had been told loads of fucking times to stop putting his fucking knob in the machinery." "I'm sure I did," replied Mrs. Black. "I've lost count of the times I've told him to put that away and stop fiddling with it. I told him, I said, that thing will be the death of you one day." "Well, here we are then. It's that day today, innit? What did I tell him, eh? What did I say? I said, Anyway, interrupted the visitor. "The bosses there have asked me to pass on a little compo to you, even though, and let's be fucking clear about this, it wasn't their fucking fault." Remembering the wish he'd made the previous night, Mr. Black withdrew his wife's hand from his trouser pocket and asked the visitor, "Compo? Fucking much." "Well, 20, started the visitor. 20 fucking grand, I fucking knew it," snapped Mr. Black. No, replied the visitor, reaching into the briefcase and pulling out 2 tenors. 20 quid? Here, Cop for this! Fuck off, you little chancer, snapped Mr. Black. It's 20 fucking grand and you know it. Yeah, nice try, bollocks, laughed his wife. Alright. Sighed the stranger. I don't know how you fucking worked it out, but it is 20,000. And, leaving the house, he complained, you might as well keep the fucking briefcase too. It's no fucking use to me now, you shower of shites. Inside the house, Mr. and Mrs. Black stared in horror as the donkey's dong pulsated, twitched, and fell from the mantelpiece into the briefcase and nestled menacingly among the pile of loose dosh. In the large old graveyard, some 3 miles away from Alpine Lodge, Mr. and Mrs. Black buried young Adolf as he was starting to smell a bit, and returned to a house immersed in shade and stillness, but starting to smell a little better. I can't believe you spent £20,000 on a fucking funeral, complained Mr. Black during that night's shag. Oh, shut the fuck up, you miserable old cunt, snapped his unsatisfied wife. It should be me moaning in bed, not you. The following week, old Mr. Black awoke abruptly in the dark to find his wife quietly sobbing. Shut the fuck up, Eva, he whispered gently. You just fucking woke me up. Sorry about that, Herman, darling, she replied. I'm just a bit upset about something. You go back to sleep, love. Mr. Black nodded off peacefully and dreamed about being hung like a donkey until he was woken by an annoying shriek from his cunt of a wife. The dong! She yelled frantically. The donkey's dong! What the fuck, you noisy twat? Cried Mr. Black. Oh, I want it, she panted. I want it now. What? Asked Mr. Black curiously. Your dong, replied his wife. Give it to me! Give it to me! For God's sake, woman, you're insatiable, cried Mr. Black. Go back to sleep. I'll give it to you tomorrow at the usual time. Dirty bitch. What? Oh, no, sighed Mrs. Black. Not your dong. Fucking useless thing that is. The donkey's dong. Where is it? In the living room on the fucking mantelpiece, he replied. Why the fuck do you want it? Don't I satisfy you anymore, saying? Fuck's sake. I don't want it for that, you daft old twat, laughed Mrs. Black. I just remembered there's still 2 wishes left on the fucking thing. Go and get it and wish Adolf back alive again. For fuck's sake, woman, sighed the tired old man. If I get him back to life, will you let me get back to sleep? Fucking hell. Of course I fucking will. Just hurry up and get your dong out. Herman Black crept and crept downstairs, feeling his way in the darkness, and took his dong down from the mantelpiece. He grasped the talisman Tadger and stood in front of the unlit fire, trembling with cold and fear. Make the fucking wish, demanded his domineering wife. I'm shitting a brick here, he exclaimed. I don't think we should do this, you know. Just fucking get on with it, scolded Mrs. Black impatiently. Wish, wish, wish. He raised the donkey's dong aloft in his right hand and supported it with his little pinky as he tried to remember the Major's bizarre instructions from the previous night. Standing on one leg with his left hand over his right nipple, he span round 3 times, spat in his wife's right eye, kicked the cat in his left bollock, gave the front door key to the budgie, and wished aloud in an annoyingly singy-songy voice, Ooh, I fucking wish my son alive again, I do. I mean Adolf, of course. Let me just clarify that. If there's any other little bastards that we don't know about, I'm not talking about them. Just Adolf, okay? Ooh. The donkey's dong dropped to the floor, where it lay twitching and pulsating, watched by the old pair of fuckwits for what seemed like an hour, or perhaps closer to 60 minutes. After a pair of half hours had passed, a faint knock, so soft and surreptitious as to be barely perceptible, sounded on the front door. Mr. Black farted and followed through, and his wife wee-weed a little, but she was probably going to do that anyway. She's like that, you know. The pair of fuckwits stood frozen in terror, their breath suspended, while the knock became louder and more persistent. Then they spun around and legged it upstairs like a right pair of shitbags, closing the door behind them. The knocking continued to sound around the house resoundingly. "What the actual fuck is that?" cried the frightened old woman, weeing herself a little more rapidly than before. "Take a wild guess, you thick bitch!" cried her husband. "It's fucking Adolf!" she yelled. "It's Adolf!" She ran like fuck towards the door, but her husband grabbed her by the arse and squeezed tightly. "Where the fuck do you think you're fucking going, dickhead?" he whispered gruffly. "It's our son! It's Adolf!" she shrieked. "Fucking get off me! I'm gonna let him in and put the kettle on." "For fuck's sake! Don't let the little fucker in!" wailed old Mr. Black, quaking like a proper shithouse. "Let me go! I'm coming!" cried his struggling wife. "I'm coming!" And it's a long time since I've said that in this bedroom, I can tell you. The knocking became louder and more intense. Eva Black broke free and whizzed down the stairs, in more ways than one. Her husband chased after her and grabbed the donkey's dong as she began to unlock the door. As she struggled with the dodgy bolt, which she'd been asking Herman to take a look at for fucking ages now, he went through the whole spinning, spitting, singy-songy nonsense as he made his third and final wish. Mrs. Black had opened the door the very moment the wish was made, only to have it slam shut in her fucking stupid face. The knocking stopped abruptly, although the sound still rebounded roundly and resoundingly around the small dark house of Alpine Lodge. A fucking cold blast of air rushed up the stairway as Mr. and Mrs. Black embraced tightly, comforting each other and becoming slightly aroused in the process. Outside, the evening was fucking freezing, and the street lamp flickering opposite shone on a quiet and deserted road, ambiguously suggesting a possible end to the curse of the donkey's dong. However, in the brief moment between Adolf trying to get through the door and it being slammed, his ghastly, ghostly appendage had been sliced off and now lay twitching outside the little house of Alpine Lodge, carrying the curse of the donkey's dong and waiting to be discovered in the cruel winter night.